about that. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. This is our monthly Ranch Right webinar, generally entitled Understanding Your Financials. And today, the great Walter Lynn is going to join us to talk mostly about yardage and about thinking about the costs. We're going to eventually get to cost to carry, which is next month. But thinking about the costs of running your operation and how much it costs you if you are feeding someone else's animals or your own animals, what it costs you to keep those around. So I think I've given Walter's introduction a number of times. Most of you know he has been a friend of mine for a long time and mentored me in many different areas of accounting. He's been a real pioneer in terms of bringing the process of holistic management, ranching for profit into accounting software, and really has a wonderful mind for business as well as accounting, which is a rare characteristic. Heard a neat statistic this week, Walter. Benchmarks in the US and the UK have 50% of accounting firms being not economically profitable.
Oh, wow.
There are lots of accountants that will offer business advisory services, and I would hesitate to take advice from someone who's not running a profitable business. But the cool thing is that's something Walter really understands well, and has a lot of experience in agriculture from childhood. And so this has been he's really married a lot of things and brought a lot of skills to bear. So we are in the process of downloading as much as we can out of Walter's brain. So we're going to go on with that today and talk about yardage. So Walter, all you.
Okay, well, it's great to be on today. It looks like we've got 25 folks on today, and it's awesome. I'm in Springfield, Illinois, and we've got some of the guys are done planting corn already. So, and corn and beans both. So, but
look
anyway,
at this guy in a t-shirt with the sun streaming in his windows while it's snowing outside my house. So
yeah, and then the other one I want you to notice, this is a grass-fed exchange, okay? And I have my HM hat, a holistic management hat also, if I need that too. So the one thing, I don't know if you've seen these grass-fed exchange shirts, but it's not the cow, it's the how. So anyway, I think we can apply that in a lot of different ways for the people that are on here today. So
for the record, we're not sponsored by Grass-Fed Exchange. If they would like to have a sponsorship opportunity, maybe we should have them call Walter.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But anyway, there's some great people and that have been a part of that organization. And I've gone, I think in 19, and then I went to one in 22 down in Texas. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pop this up, John. Okay, and then I'll probably have to get a little bigger here when we do it. Okay.
All right. While he's looking for that, just wanted to let the rest of you know, you got an email this month from Jessica, our new office manager. She is in the process of our meeting link for this meeting every month, third Thursday at 1 o'clock Mountain, is going to stay the same. We are going to continue mailing those out. But the actual Zoom link will stay consistent from here forward is the plan. Right. And we are working on getting the notice out further ahead. A number of you had given us some feedback that you'd like more notice on this meeting, and we are working on getting that done. So hopefully shortly after this meeting, we will have the next one scheduled and the announcement out.
So John, can you see this?
Yep. Do we want to make it maybe a little bigger?
Yeah, that's my task right now.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. All right. This is an operation that we have basically, we've got our cow-calf, our stocker, our custom feeding. little bit of direct, that's minor, and then of course we have the, you know, the general ranch as the enterprises and or classes in QuickBooks. Okay, so I just want to give you the context of how this is coming together. One of the things that I'm looking at 6 months worth of data. You know, when we're going through this, we're going from October 2022 to March 2023. This is a pretty good data set that we have, but what we're going to be doing today is focusing primarily on the custom feeding side of this, because what we're trying to do are we getting a margin on that. Okay, is there any question or anything you would add to that, John?
No, I think we're good. We'll get into this a little bit. One thing that Wally and I are actually just on a podcast to talk about is the idea that our businesses can be broken into two main components. The one is the operational and the other is the asset ownership class, or the asset ownership side. And in this particular example, Walter's going to go through this. The custom feeding operation services both external customers and an internal customer. So every animal on the ranch is run through this custom feeding program, whether it's owned by the ranch or owned by someone else. We can talk more about the details of that later.
Right. And I guess what I'm going to focus on here a second is the 128 that I have highlighted, and is it big enough so you can see it, John?
Yep.
Okay. The 128 is the internal stuff.
Yes.
And the 182 is the external. So you want to share what your team does with the one on the 128 side? Just a second. You know how you're.
Yeah. You bet. You bet. We're doing this with a number of customers, and I really have gotten to love it. This is what I was saying. So we charge their own cattle the same feeding grazing rate as they charge external customers. And so that transfer, and Daniel's the one that's kind of pioneered this and worked out a lot of the bugs, but that transfer, basically we through Performance Beef, in this case, we invoice the owners, and they pay, they pay on paper, right, out of the direct costs of the cow-calf and the stocker enterprise, which are the owned cattle enterprises. They pay that over to the custom feeding enterprise. So that those bottom 6 squares, the internal feed, internal freight, internal vet medicine, that should all add up to that 128,871 that's in yellow in the custom feeding.
Yeah, there's a little bit. I think there's some other things that are in that. Yeah.
Okay. There may be.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's going to be yardage, of course, too, which is one of the things we're going to talk about. Sorry. Right. But the point there is that's a non-cash transaction, but it gives us a great way to really examine whether the profit in this business overall is coming from the owning of cattle or from the feeding of cattle. And I think that's something we're going to get into more. But like I say, Daniel Strong on our team is the one that's really pioneered this. We're doing this with at least a half dozen customers at this point, and I love how it works out.
Right. I mean, I think if you look, excuse me, I think I can nail that. Yeah, there's the 128.
There's the 128. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me highlight so we can make sure. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers are what comprise the 128 up above, so that you can see that. So is that resonating with the participants that are on here today? Have you got any questions on that so far?
I got one question, Walter and John. Why isn't profit built into that? And more generally, when we do our intra-company transfers, are we applying opportunity costs and profit at the product level?
They're using the same rate that they'd be doing outside, and we'll get into that in a little bit, Eric. Okay. right?
But yeah, that's retail rate, Eric. So there is a margin in that already.
Correct.
So the margin that you see in the custom feeding business is the margin that they're being charged.
So
Right.
because the 182 or slightly less than 183K comes from the internal feed and subcharge, internal freight, internal vet, the profit is built into those individual products.
Okay, so let me make sure I explain this. There is an invoice sent from the custom feeding enterprise to the owned cattle enterprise. That invoice in this case, or those invoices add up to 128,871, right?
Right.
Those
Right.
numbers are distributed in those internal categories in the owned enterprises just as they are billed. Those are not actual direct costs to that
Got it.
enterprise. The direct costs are below the 128 and the 182 in the direct costs for the custom feeding column.
Correct.
Does that make sense? So the direct costs are the 327, the 60, 627, the 5195, the 9955, right? Which add up to the 156 cost of goods sold in the custom feeding column.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. Got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
So that's
All
the
right.
margin that's being charged to the owned cattle enterprise.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Because this is
Good question.
Well, another one, John. Here. Let me just show the
Yeah, good.
product just a second here too. And let me blow this up. Sorry.
All right.
Okay. So what we're doing here is you can see that what we've got here is this is the item report that we have, and so you can see how this all comes together. Okay, because what we're doing here is the per day charges. Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into all this up here. I mean, there's cow calf and stockers, etc. But what the deal is, here's the external piece, and this is the internal piece. Okay.
So what you notice there, and they're not exactly the same. There is variation, but they're very close, right? The custom grazing external, the customers pay $1.06,
Right.
$1.07, and the internal customer pays $1.07.
Right.
Fed feed on the internal is $1.37. It's $1.27 on the external. They're not exactly the same, but they're quite close. But the important thing here is if they were feeding their own or feeding someone else's, we're billing it exactly the same way. And this would be the same if they were feeding at their house or feeding at someone else's house.
Right. Right. And then the yardage is 55 on both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Highlight the yardage there, Walter, on both of those, if you will, please.
Yeah, I can.
Everybody kind of understand what we're doing there and why.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay.
So, one of the things I see here, but just a second. Okay, but let's just kind of go to the bottom line of this just a second, okay? So we've got the different. Well, let's go down here just a second. Let's go to the gross margin. Okay? So we've got a little bit of the cow calf hasn't caught up during this part of the year. I mean, they need to kind of expect that with this is kind of a high cost period of time, for these 6 months. Okay. So then the stockers, there's a little bit of challenge there also. but the custom feeding piece is the one that we've got a gross margin in. Okay, so but what what I wanted to go down here and show is one piece that we did here is we looked at the first, John and I chatted about how we're going to do this deal a little bit. And so anyway, you look at we've got the let's go back up here so I can show you the 364. But the 364 is the different incomes, okay? And these, I didn't bring these in. They're kind of minor to the deal, except what's going on. But so that was maybe a little bit of a decision that we made. So, but anyway, what we did is we said, well, okay, if we look at that 364 for those three different enterprises, we're going to basically allocate the 77, which is the part for the general ranch. We'll allocate it based on that ratio. So it'd be the 5,300 over the 365,000, or the 311 over the 365,000. So anyway, but I mean, the one piece that I did here, and I got this, I really did that more on the, I need to put in those other, I didn't get all the units in there on that one. So, but if you put, let me do that real quick here, but that's just the units that were actually sold on the external piece, if I remember right here. Okay. Yeah, the 182. Okay. But you would also have the cost for you would have also these costs for the internal cattle too. So let me just add those in just to bring it up, bring it current. So I was wanting to see what it was kind of both with and without.
9581.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll work.
So now, really our cost per unit when we're doing it by, basically we're doing it by almost the head date piece. Are you with me? Or those are the units that are actually the head days that would be attributed to those particular enterprises. Okay, does that make sense, John?
I think so. Let's make sure we've clarified this. Go ahead. I hear a question.
What's that line there? The 5369. What are those numbers again?
The 5369.
Right up above, next block up.
Yeah, you mean right here?
No,
Up
up to the left of that. Two to the left, two to the
Or-
two up.
Oh,
That
yeah,
whole-
yeah. Oh, yeah. The 5369 is basically the gross profit.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Yep.
So we're basically allocating it. This is one way to do it, is what we wanted to, and we got to see which one kind of makes sense for what we're doing. So, I mean, what we've got here is if you take those three numbers together, that is the
364.
364.
All right, so I want to make sure let's put a few parentheses on this. We don't allocate overheads, right?
Yeah, correct.
Generally.
That's generally, that's right.
But for this calculation, what we are doing is looking at a comparison of either gross product or head days to come up with how much of the overhead cost should go to that one particular enterprise for sake of calculation. There are a lot of different ways to do this. We have a lot of options. what we are going to get to here in the end is how do we figure out what our yardage cost is? We could ask the grow yard to pay for the whole ranch. That would make our yardage higher. What we're trying to do is what's a reasonable percentage of the overheads for the grow yard to pay for? And for our customers to pay for. And so that's what we're figuring here.
Right.
And so that's why we are doing the allocation. We're not actually allocating the overheads. We're just trying to figure out what's a reasonable contribution of the grow yard to the overhead expenses.
Right. Because the overheads, and let's just go down through that just for sake of argument. Okay. I mean, there's the insurance, there's the fees, the labor, and the property, plant, equipment type expenses. And then we're using the rent that's on this particular operation. We're actually using it, and the interest, we're actually using it. We're netting those off, so it comes down to a net of 77 in the overheads, basically the general ranch enterprise. So is everybody on the same page there?
So keeping the lights on this ranch costs $78,000. It's basically what we're coming to, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so now let's go and think about, I went through and looked at I computed the stock days, head days, or whatever you want to call it, for each of these enterprises. Okay, the three main ones that we have here. Okay, so let's go back to we've got 65,000 of the 77. 85% of it is going to go to the custom feed. Okay, but that's based on gross product. I want to emphasize that again. Okay. All right. So if we had the units that we added up there, the 217, that's what we're saying is that it's 30 cents a unit for the cost. So, and when you actually look down here a little bit further, the gross margin is 155. You got it, John?
Gross profit, right?
Well, yeah, the gross profit, gross margin. Okay, 150. Got it right here. All right. So what's going on is that actually, based on the units, is actually coming out at about 72 cents. Okay. And I didn't do it the gross. I didn't do it the gross. I just did it at the. I mean, I can do
You did
it.
You did it at the head days as an example.
Yeah, right.
Right. But you could have done it based on the gross product percentage also. Right?
Yeah, I could have done it on. Well, if I'd have done it on gross product, okay. If I'd have done it on gross product, okay. Wait a minute. If I'd have done it on gross product, what's that work out to per? Per the unit? How much are we getting in total? Okay, I mean it's 311. You with me? Okay, so if we divide the 311 by the number of units, that's $1.43. Now that's with the feed and everything in it. Okay, that makes sense, John?
Makes sense to me. Let's put it out. What are we here there?
So John and Walter.
Yes.
Yeah. So is that $1.43? That's the total cost to keep per head per day. Is that correct?
No, that's the growth. Well, Grant, that's what that is that's the that's what we're built. That's what we build out on a per day basis. The way I look at it.
So that's feed and yardage together.
That's correct. And feed,
Build.
yeah. So whatever we build, because let's just go back up there again. Okay. Okay, all I did was, it's everything that we build. It's this 311 right here. That's the total revenue.
So Walter, would that not be, I mean, from an owned cattle perspective, wouldn't that $1.43, that may not be your direct cost, but that's what you're getting billed within the system. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. Basically, that's what you're getting billed, in the process. I mean, your cost in that deal, you would, that, I mean, well, let's just make it full. I see where you're going. Thank you. But anyway, it's $1.43. Got it? All right. So let's look, whoops. If we got $1.43, okay, come on here, Walter. All right, that's $1.43. All right, now let's be full disclosure. Okay, all right. So let's go and look at the direct costs. You with me? So if we go and do the direct costs, that is going to be the 156, right? All right. So if I divide that by the 217, that's internal, external, across the board, that's 72. Okay. So yeah, okay. So big picture, it's about 50-50. Right, John?
Pretty darn close. Now I've got a question having done that, because I know what the yardage charge was. So I just subtracted that to come up with the feed and the yardage.
Right.
This includes grazing though. So that is not my
Yeah,
approach.
I
is
know.
not
But
quite
we
correct.
could bust it out too.
Right. We could break it into two, but yeah. All right. Good. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So this is the direct costs per unit also, okay? All right.
Excuse me.
And then, whoops, God bless whoever that was.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then this is the gross margin, this is the gross margin per.
That's the overhead per, is it not?
Yeah, right.
That's the money that can pay overhead. Yeah. Gross profit, gross margin.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, but anyway, that's the gross margin per head day, which is what I computed up here. Okay. So, but so the question is, when how much is how much, when we look at it based off of the revenue, the overheads are 30 cents a day. Right, John?
Mm-hmm.
But when we do it based off of the units, it's actually 24. And I mean, I'd say, I mean, I know that's, a little bit different. I mean, it's whatever, 20%. I mean, it is 20% different. So we have to get it in our minds, which one makes sense for our operation. I got everybody confused.
So let's talk about, Walter, why would I use one or the other? Why? Let's think that through just a little bit. What would be the reason for using the higher number or the reason for using the lower number, and not just because I like it better?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, I guess I'm not trying to make the say the profit piece of this look better, but it just seems to make more sense to me if we have it based off of the units. but that's my filter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the one we got to have some discussion on.
Mhm. And again, the unit you're using there in this case is what?
It's basically the head day.
Yeah.
So is the next step in this, like to introduce another unit of production, and that would be per pound of gain? Like when me and you did this, John, last week, we just did some rough numbers and came out to basically $1.50 per head per day, which is great. But I'm not really in the business of making more heads. I'm in the business of growing animal flesh. So how would we do this with pounds?
Great
Well,
question. So what you're looking at there, Walter, is, and again, we're going to get more into cost to keep in the future, but you're kind of talking about that difference now. Am I right there, Walter?
right.
Okay, so if you're doing 2 pounds a day, then you would cut that in half. If you're doing 1.5 pounds, then we'd divide by 1.5. Does that make sense?
Could you also, is it as simple as looking at, like, you don't have a scale at your ranch, right? Let's say you're just strictly doing stockers, keep it simple. You know the weight of these animals that you bought, right? You know the weight of these animals that you sold. That delta, that difference is what the animals gained.
Is the
And
denominator.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we are going to get into more nuance in the next one about cost to keep, because I think, Walter, we agree there's more to that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
we
we
wanna
didn't,
think
yeah, we
we
thought
explicitly are going to avoid that a little today. But I want to make sure we have this part kind of locked down, and then I think next month we can have that discussion in more detail with all of its complexity.
Right. But you can see there's a difference. I mean, we put more on the cow-calf, here. Okay, 1,100 versus 4,600, and we about doubled what went to the stalker piece. So, does that make sense in this operation? So.
And I'm going to tell you, Walter, I have become a big fan of running these numbers a couple different ways and looking at them.
Right.
Sometimes completely without a theory, to just see where they land. Usually I have a theory about what how do I expect them to play out and how am I thinking about it? But sometimes it just helps to just look at the numbers and say, okay, why would it be that different? And what's my reason, my rationale for doing one versus the other.
Right. Right. And I guess that's what I'm kind. I mean, I think and there's a piece of. I mean, you could go up here on the cow-calf. I don't know this, but you guys have more. John, you might be able to give a little bit more light on this. But if you had, say, on cow-calf, if you weren't in sync with nature on when you were calving, maybe the head days aren't the right way to do it. And I think that's what you're trying to say, right, John?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
And I think the other caveat that you mentioned that I will mention again is we are doing a very odd time period right here. Mostly that is because this is when we've got the really good record for the numbers, but we have an expectation of cow-calf business in the northern, above I-70, that you don't have a lot of income during that period in this location, right? So in that cow-calf enterprise, we have incurred all of the feeding costs and generally not incurred much in terms of production or anything in terms of production.
Right. Right.
So make sure we kind of have that in our mind.
Right.
So then when you look at the numbers themselves, they're ugly.
But stockers being positive, even with that extra internal charge, that's a good thing, right? Like,
Well, that's
Well-
interesting. That's interesting because the Stalker gross margin is actually negative, right? You get a negative in front of the 64, Walter.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's a
So-
negative 64,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. He doesn't have it in the parentheses format.
Sorry.
That's all right.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
So again, we may have an expectation about what that number should be. It may be negative at this time of year anyway, but I'd like to look into that in a little more detail. But I mean, if we just looked at these, if this was a 12-month number and we looked at those, we'd say, boy, your margin on custom feeding is really good. Your margin on these owned cattle enterprises is not very good. You know, do we really need to continue owning animals?
Right. So
Now, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the margin on the custom feeding is not very good and the margin is all in the ownership. Maybe that's where we focus.
Right.
I don't want this to paint a generalized picture, and I really don't want the specifics of these numbers to mean anything right now.
Right. The other piece, the revenue piece up here in the Gin Ranch, it's more of a recovery of trucking. So, I don't think we don't need a trucking enterprise in the deal. I mean, it's reducing,
Right.
it's reducing the fuel, the labor, whatever, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
All right. So, Walter, in this case, is this ranch charging the right amount of yardage? Are they charging the right amount to their customers, both internal and external?
and to me, I feel they are.
And what do you justify? What do you base that on?
Well, what I'm getting at is, I mean, they've got a gross margin per head per day of 72 cents. You with me, John?
Huh?
And the overheads are, I mean, let's split the difference at 27 cents.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's a pretty, I'd say a pretty good margin.
Does everybody understand what he's doing there? And
Well,
if you
Jim-
want, go ahead.
Yeah, all I did was add the 30 cents and the 24 cents together and divided it by 2.
Yeah.
Okay, to get, to get the overheads.
And the other way you would do that is just simply add up the overheads and divide by what?
Well, I mean, that's what I did. was
Right.
I I divided it by the 217.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. So divided the total overhead expense by the head days.
Right.
And you use the 77 because there in this one, there's like a rental income. So you put that back in basically as though it was.
It's a reduction. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, that's in the it's a reduction in the overheads.
Yep.
And I mean, depending on how it is, maybe in the family side, maybe the family doesn't, maybe the rent should be in a different, I'm gonna say pot.
Mhm.
So,
The part I'm still struggling with is the profit margin, right? So if you apply your profit margin at the product level, the only thing your gross margin or your contribution margin is responsible for covering is your overhead, right? If you don't build in your profit at the product level, like the way I've seen it traditionally on a product-based company, like a factory that makes widgets, right? They got their variable cost margin. Then you have your contribution margin, and that contribution margin has to cover your overhead margin and your profit margin. I guess a word of caution, mostly to myself, is that if you stick to them, if you whatever method you choose, you got to stick to it. Otherwise, your profit, which is what the game's all about, that number is gonna get confusing.
Right, right.
Like when we did our first sell by transaction, or our first purchase, our virgin buy last year, we gave up a lot of good opportunities because the buyback wouldn't have resulted in the profit that we wanted. But then in hindsight, I ran the numbers two different ways, and it spits out two different results. So that's my big question.
The bias is the slope of that line in the relationship between weight classes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when we're doing a traditional RFP economic analysis, and you're doing all this trading back and forth, all these transfers, is the profit applied at the product level, or the enterprise level, or the division level? If all your pricing is done right, it shouldn't make a difference. But I keep on making mistakes, and so there's a big difference.
Well, let me help you on something just a second, Eric. Okay, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, where I'm going to go with this, I'm going to do this on a per unit deal, okay? And I'm, if it's okay in the description here, okay, you with me? All right. I mean, I'm going to use the 24 cents, okay? All right. So in essence, what's going on, this is all right now. %33 bottom line. That's a pretty good number, Eric. That makes sense, John?
It does to me. Eric, are you comfortable there?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'll take that at the bank any day.
Yeah. All right. Because I just think that's how, we've shown, how that works there. So, because typically we don't get that. Okay. Oh,
and then here's the other part of this. We can think about this a few different ways, but if you figure the overheads at 77,000, right? And then you multiply by 85%. So that reduces it down to, what did I do here? Sorry. That reduces it to 65,000 and change. Okay. And then divide by the units. Divide that by, sorry? Did I lose you, Walter?
Well, yeah, now you're back. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I took the 77,000 in overheads. I multiplied by the percentage of the overheads I want to pay with my feeding enterprise. I then divide, so that gets me down to 65,450, and then I divide that by the 217,260, so the number of head days.
All right.
Okay, and that 30 cents number is that is cost. If you notice from before, Eric, they charge 55 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there is we have already built the margin in.
Right. Right. But that's based off that's based off allocating them by revenue. What you did, John.
Correct.
Right.
But again, that doesn't mean I'm gonna run out and charge 30 cents. That's not gonna work. Right? We're gonna charge 30 cents plus a markup.
That's right.
And what's interesting to me is that even though we mark it up to 55 cents, the realized profit is not whatever 30 divided by 55 is, which is almost 2, right? Or 50, almost 100%, right? It's 33. And so that's a little, that is a number a person wants to definitely be paying attention to both directions.
Right.
And I think we touched on that last week or last month when we talked about markup and how it relates to this stuff.
Right. Right. Another piece of this, John, I mean, I think we've got some pretty good integrity with these numbers. We could probably break the components of the 143 and the 71 out too.
Yes.
Right. I mean, yeah, this operation has some, I think, some pretty good numbers. I mean, they're quality.
Yeah, the data quality is very high. Yep. And that's they give us a tremendous amount of data, and Daniel does a really good job of making sure it makes it through into the financials. So
Right.
So the data is really good because they're feeding in a grow yard, right? You know, you got all these fancy tractors with fancy computers resulting in fancy spreadsheets, and then Daniel runs some analysis. What about simple grass types? You know, there's a big gap between grass is free and grass is not free. I mean, how not free is grass? Like, how do we come up with that number? We did that sort of last week.
Let's go there. All right, you with me?
Yeah.
Eric? All right. Let's do a little, you're asking a good question. You with me?
I'm hanging in there.
All right, you're doing awesome. Okay.
So normally grass is free for your stalker class, but in this case, it's free for the custom class kind of thing.
Can somebody mute her?
got it.
All right. So what we've got, I mean, in essence, we've got that's my 217. You with me? Okay. So what we can do here, let's go with grazing here. I'm starting down a path, John.
Yep.
Okay, you with me? All right. And this is going to be the yardage, right, John?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so then here, we got grazing here. And so in this particular deal, John, I mean, just based on the units,
You're like 55, 45, right? Yeah.
But I mean, and this is where you gotta think through your data, which I mean, I really appreciate Eric's challenge here. Is that okay to say that, Eric?
I prefer challenge over confrontation. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, Walter.
Yeah, but where I'm getting at is that we, by these numbers, and based off of units, we would be putting more of that 8,000 on the grazing. But see, that doesn't make sense to me. You with me?
Yeah, I guess line item 30, right? Row number 30, CG
Yeah.
internal custom grazing, those numbers.
Right.
How is this operation coming up with that custom grazing internal cost?
Okay, John, you want to explain that again?
I'll be very disappointed if it's like, well, going rate is $1.05. That's not the best way to come up with your cost of production, even for grass.
Yeah, so that, funny enough, you may be very disappointed, but that's not far from how that rate was come to. But that there's a reason there's some variation in that rate, and there, there's some variation through the year of what that rate is. But that is largely a market determined rate. And what this says to us is that market rate in this operation works out quite nicely.
Right.
Okay, so this is not the custom grazing rate charged is not driven by the business. The custom rate charged is driven by the market, and the business is able to profit at that market.
Yeah, so it works out, but maybe the market's wrong, right?
Quite possibly. And sometimes your business is not a fit for the market. So you need to either change the business or charge a different rate if the market will bear it. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Now, if you live in the Sandhills in Nebraska and can charge $3 a day for a pear, that's one thing. But I'll tell you, if I tell my neighbors that I'm going to charge $3 a day, or if anybody tells me they're going to charge $3 a day, I'm not going.
No,
we're going to do something else.
So tell me if this technique works, right? Because this is something that we're playing around with.
Yeah.
Because our grass is not created equally.
Correct.
We got high elevation dry land, low elevation dry land, irrigated, etc. So take, for example, West Kettle Ranch, 217 acres under pivot. We put all our costs associated with that piece of property in one bucket. Right. The lease.
Yep.
The lease, the power for the pivots, water licenses, everything.
Yeah.
If we wanted to, we could even throw a little labor in there. But the cost of grass on that specific property is 98 cents, let's say, right?
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, let's tack on a little bit of profit. Compare that to the market rate. Okay, the market will bear this. This will work. Is that one way of doing it?
That absolutely. I mean, my interest is in the difference between my cost and the market.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if that, let's say you come up with 98 cents and the market's at 70, then we're out. If you come up to 98 cents and the market's at $1, I'm out. I have no interest in doing it for 2 cents. If the market's at $1.25, now we're talking. And if the market's at $2, I'm even more interested.
Cool.
Okay.
Walter, you want to add anything to that? I mean, this really is, again, we have to think very carefully about what the drivers are. In your part of the world, Eric, the custom grazing market is much looser.
Yes.
Meaning the rates are not very well established, right? In many parts of very many parts of the United States, there is not the real established high volume custom grazing market going on where there's a well-established price. When you go to the Sandhills of Nebraska, that is a very well-tested market, very well-defined. If you go to a lot of parts of Wyoming, it's pretty clearly defined. It's a lot lower, right? It's a third or less of what it is in the Sandhills. But if you don't have a defined market and you are trying to figure out what to charge, then you could do cost plus your profit target. If you live in a very well-defined market, then you probably have to look at the difference between market and your price and decide if that's a business you want to be in.
And basing it on cost too, it also has the advantage of comparing the different harvest
properties,
methods, right? Like the cost of that grass, whether it the ultimate format of that grass is hay or in a rumen, before it's harvested, it's the same price.
Right. And
that helps us make a decision whether we make hay, custom graze, or put it through our own animals.
And as I recall, looking at your situation in an EL meeting, you decided that there was a portion of your place that putting it into hay was the best value this year.
We're putting it all in hay.
Yeah.
Because in order to break those two options, in order to get a break even, I forget the number, but it was something like we would have to charge $3.15 per head per day to get the equivalency of the hay option. Haying in our neck of the woods is extremely profitable for the first year, but you can only do it so many years before you have to put money back into the piggy bank.
Because the inputs haven't caught up with you yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That was gonna be my question on that, Eric. If we were, you've got to consider that cost of taking all those nutrients off.
Totally.
Yeah. Oof.
Totally. But right now, this year, we are 100% cash finance focused. So even though the economics, like in some of our EA work, we did that, we had an opportunity cost kind of built in to account for the exporting of nutrients. But at the end of the day, this year we're in survival mode, and we know ecologically we'll be okay as long as we don't do this habitually year to year.
Right. Now I'm going to throw another one at you, Eric, to maybe, excuse me, I'm probably messing with you. Sorry.
That's fine.
He loves it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah, but let's okay. There's one guy on this. I don't want to, I want to be. I want to respect, the, I don't want to betray trust. But anyway, there's one guy that's on here today that what I thought was interesting. I got some feedback on bricks. You with me, Eric?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
if you had, I mean, in this one particular example, there was a bricks out there at 22. Okay, you got it. And then let's just say you had, just easy figure, you had 380s that were out there. Okay, all right. You had one that says 22. Another one that's at 16, or well, let's say it's at 16, and then you got another one that's about say 12 or whatever. Okay, you with me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, how would you manage that one?
So we're doing that. We're not out there doing bricks because we're not that sciencey. But what we do is essentially discount our grass or put a premium on it, right? So we have a general price per AUD, animal unit day, for this ground here. But at this season, because it's a little droughty, this month we're going to eyeball it and we're going to discount the value of this grass by 15%. Right. And so we establish a baseline. And if it's really good grass, because our pine grass, it kind of goes in cycles. Some years it's good, some years it's not. If it's a good pine grass, we would tack a bit of a premium on that. And then ultimately let the customer decide. So we view all our grass as different products.
Right.
If the customer wants to put steers on cow grass, all the power to them.
Right.
We let them make the decision, because for whatever reason it might pencil out. I mean, me and John kind of talked about this. We talked about grow yards and then shrink yards, right? Sometimes there's an angle to be made by keeping an animal at a certain weight and by just providing them
you want to slow them down. You want to slow them down.
This is Kurt Epler in Eastern Wyoming during the 2000s, right, Walter?
Yeah, but
anyway,
I mean, we got to be cognizant of that
Yeah.
And and the classes of critters that we have is where I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
So,
and the quality of the product that we are providing.
Right.
Because grass is not grass is not grass.
Right.
Yeah.
Walter, give us a quick explanation of bricks for anybody that isn't aware of what that is.
Well, is there any winos on here?
No one's gonna answer.
Yeah. Oh, okay, this is an AA meeting, huh?
I see Annalise and George's picture in bars all the time promoting food products, so I'm sure they're.
But and I'm being crazy. For
It's
a
a
second.
it's a vineyard tool, right? It comes out of the winery
Yeah,
industry, right?
yeah.
The grape industry.
Yeah, that's my point. It comes out, it's the sugars and solids that are used to determine when to pick that grape to make that bottle of wine. But you can also, and I don't know if you want me to, John, but I could probably find some of the writings that Alan Williams has had on that, if you want me to get that.
That would be great. Yeah, let's go ahead and attach that. I think that's good because that would be helpful for anybody that's not familiar with it. I mean, basically, we have the internals of a plant, right? Is generally a solution, right? We have water and other stuff, and bricks is a measure, as I understand it, of the other stuff, mostly sugars. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
And what you use, the little device is called,
Refractometer, right?
yeah, I know, but Eric and I, we probably maybe know what a kaleidoscope is.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe John does, but maybe some of the other younger crowd that's on here.
I bet George Walker knows.
Okay, all right. But
You
anyway,
calling me old?
No, I did not say that. Old enough to know what a kaleidoscope is.
yeah. But I mean, what you're doing is it's like you're holding the kaleidoscope up to look through, the light, and then there's a scale on that refractometer, and it's a little bit of you get a really decent garlic press, or you get a piece of or you get a little bit pricey vice grips that you can squeeze the juice out of that plant, and then you put it on that plate that's on that refractometer, and you hold it up to the light. And then for those that are in the row crop space, I think when you get the bricks up above 14, the insects don't want to eat corn, the plant.
And why would that be, Walter? It's very interesting. It is literally too good for them.
Well, that's basically what they're doing. The way people have kind of explained it to me, and maybe this is the wino thing I was asking, but that sugar, it really messes up that bug's gut, and it's like the bug is getting drunk.
Yeah, it produces alcohol.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And then it also messes with the osmolality, right? Where it changes membrane diffusion.
Say that again, John.
It also messes with the osmolarity so that it changes membrane diffusion behavior, right?
Okay, yeah. So somebody's got a question. I can't get to who it is.
Oh, here, is it in the chat? No?
Well, the hand went down, so I guess, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a question, somebody's hand went back up. Go ahead. Huh, okay. I think we're okay. Oh.
All right, any other questions?
And bricks is spelled BRIX, if you guys want, if you want to look it up too.
Yeah, and if you look up Bricks and Alan Williams, he's got some YouTube videos and a couple of things on the internet. So,
right.
Is there any one of those? We'll attach a link to whatever.
Yeah, there's one that I
think your favorite is.
He's got a PDF of what the deal is.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So again, let's if we don't have any more questions, let's wrap this up. A number of you have heard me say and I've been saying it fairly frequently, that when we think about confined, there are two parts. We think about the difference in our business between the operating part and the ownership part. This is one tool that really helps us do that. When we explicitly charge our own animals a market rate for grazing or for feeding, gives us a very nice way to sort of segment what each of those parts of our business are doing. The other thing that I've talked about lately has been that in the last year, 2 years, we've seen a fantastic rise in costs. And most of our custom feeders, or most of the custom feeders and custom grazers that I talk with, are largely charging the same amount. And I believe that is a mistake. So if you were charging 35 cents for yardage 2 years ago, and you are still charging 35 cents for yardage, my contention would be that almost everything that goes into that yardage number, so these are all of your all of your overhead costs, those are all probably higher. And so you are falling behind. You are losing to inflation there. And I don't want to see us giving away, not passing along cost increases. We work in a market. We have to provide a service that provides more value than the cost from a customer's perspective. But we need to make sure when there is uncertainty and when we are the ones setting the price, that we are pricing ourselves appropriately. I kind of started with that fact about the accounting firm it's a bit of a joke, but it actually is a true fact. But also it is very relevant to the custom grazing business, because accounting firms charge a price for a service.
Right.
They aren't charging for hard products. They're primarily charging for labor. And in a grow yard, that's often what you are doing. You are charging for labor and the stuff that accompanies labor. And setting the price is a very, very powerful part of the profit equation. As we talked about last time, turnover is also a very important part. And by managing those two, I think you can be both very competitive within a market situation and very profitable in that particular enterprise. And again, it's price and turnover that are the two, and of course, always costs, but those on the income side are your two big levers. Anything you want to add to that, Walter?
No, you're because I mean, what we're really looking at, I mean, when we're looking at this 33%, that's our profit margin. So turnover times profit margin, getting back to some of the, when we're trying to do the deep dive there a little bit, I mean, we would be looking at, say this, whatever, 311 here. Well, how's that stack up with the assets that we have tied up in this deal?
Yep.
So, I mean, to Eric's question is, do we have that TMR mixer out there or whatever, I mean, you can, what is that equipment list that's out there? So, I mean, that's a piece that, we've got to be cognizant of.
Could I ask one more question, John?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about lagging indicators in previous calls, right? And so it doesn't matter how good your data is, if Daniel's telling us, oh, your cost of production is going up, by the way, a lot of times it's too late, right? Especially
Yes.
if you're in the custom feeding game and you got cattle coming in month to month, week to week even. So is it possible, is this within the realm of the possible to establish your base rates that get updated from historical data every quarter or whatever Ranch Right can do? But then the secret sauce to this model is that there's some elements of that cost that's tied to an index. So for example, if fuel spikes 20%,
You want to be
right,
ahead of it. You want to be
based
ahead.
on some sort of fuel index,
Right.
then automatically, boom, next bill that goes out on the fuel component, there's a 20% increase. And that way we can kind of dampen the lagging indicator effect. Is that same thing with labor? I mean, is that worth it? Or am I making simple things complicated again?
I think that to me is a market question. Do you have a customer that will pay you 55 cents times CPI?
Right.
Right. or CPI change quarter to quarter. My guess is, and I'll just tell you flat out, I've had this conversation with a number of custom grazer vendors. I am not interested in custom grazing, custom feeding price schemes that are very complicated. Tell me what the number is.
Mhm.
Now that
Yeah.
number could vary, quarter by quarter, year by year, however you want to do it. But when we get into all these things that have, too many pieces to them, it gets very difficult on my end. It just becomes very cumbersome to sort of figure out what's going on. If
Yeah.
you're going to if the idea of custom grazing in my mind is that it's relatively low risk, but also fairly low return. Cattle ownership, livestock ownership, right, is higher risk, potentially higher return. But obviously we're multiplying both of those two together all the time. If the pricing scheme gets too complicated, I start to lose interest just because it becomes the sort of friction factor of me continually calculating what I'm going to be doing is hard. I think if you're like this case and have a 33% margin in there, you've priced in the buffer.
Right.
And you've got, there's a number in there where, let's say it drops to 20% or 25%, then it triggers, hey, we got to have a conversation about price because our prices are changing.
Right.
And and I know everybody gets annoyed when we get the bill and it's the trucking bill plus the fuel surcharge, or it seems like those things have shown up everywhere. That's a real customer annoyance, and I would be careful with that.
Yeah.
But it also is one of those things that, like inflation right now, lots of us have gotten letters that say, hey, our cost has gone up, and so we're going to pass that on to you. A lot of people have gotten those letters, and it feels like it's okay because everybody's doing it. I think I don't like to operate that way, but I think there is definitely a place to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because with these lagging indicators, sometimes I feel in agriculture, especially because there's such a lag compared to other
Correct.
industries.
Correct.
We might get the numbers right for one quarter. Our economic analysis, our data, we are knocking it out of the park.
Yep.
But then just like that, the tactical situation changes, but we're not agile enough to respond. And we could potentially be losing a lot of money.
Right.
But you're on something with that buffer. As long as we can quantify how much of that buffer is honest to goodness profit and how much of it is buffer.
Yep. And again, this is why we don't slice this too thin. I tell people regularly, 10% profit margin is not profit. It's probably a little better than break even.
Right.
Because there's enough volatility in all of this that 10% it doesn't take much of a change in the wind to get you to zero. The guys that are operating at 2%, it doesn't take much to get them to -5.
Right.
Guys that are operating at 31% or whatever this number was, it's going to take a pretty good headwind to get that down to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also say this, at this profit margin and what these guys charge, you better produce a good product.
Right.
And they do.
Yeah, so there's consistency.
Correct. I've seen a few custom feeding situations that are charging pretty good money and maybe even a little less than market, but it's still expensive, and they're getting a third a pound of gain a day.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work. I don't care how cheap you are. There's no price low enough to accommodate that. But if you provide good, consistent performance, good, persistent, survival, quality, etc., to my mind, the profit margin works out very nicely in the market.
So,
Any other questions? Cool. You guys, thank you so much for coming today. This is a lot of fun. Next month, third Thursday of the month at 1 o'clock Mountain, we are going to talk about cost to carry, cost to keep. And Walter, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate all the time you put into this. I really want to thank Daniel, who's put a lot of time into figuring out how to make this work the best. So that as we, the building on the back of what Walter's done in years past, Daniel's really sort of pushing the ball further down the court here by giving us just better and better insights into the performances of these individual businesses. Like I said, we do this process with a half a dozen or more of our current clients, and it is a lot of fun to see how it plays through in the business and then what decisions we're able to make as a result of this. So Walter, I'm forever indebted to the decades of work you have done in this area, and really indebted to our team for how much they're committed to really making things better. And I'm thrilled with our customers who are willing to experiment with us and sort of learn with us as we go. So thank you very much. And I will look forward to seeing you in a month.
Yeah, thank you. And John, do you want to maybe call me back in a minute?
I will do that. Yes, sir.
Okay.